Boru Aboye, Orisha lifestyle for beginners. You know, when we say the Orisha community, we might as well be saying Wakanda, okay? Because it's a figment of our imagination. There is no such thing as the Orisha community. Now, when I say this, sometimes it throws people off, it ruffles people's feathers. You know, they take it the wrong way, and it seems like an offense. But I want to really be very clear with you about what I'm saying and why I'm saying it. What is a community? Let's start with that. A community is a power base. A community is a power base. That's what it is. And a community is defined by three channels of communicating or expressing power or maintaining power or perpetuating power. Okay, there are three channels of power that make a community a community. The first channel is spiritual power or the spiritual channel. The second is economic power or the economic channel. The third is political power or the political channel. Okay, the spiritual channel is responsible for identity. It's through your spiritual and or your religious practice or tradition that your identity is defined. That's why Ifa is so important to Orisha lifestyle, because Ifa defines everything that belongs to Yoruba indigenous knowledge systems. Your name comes from Ifa. The tree and the nature of that tree and how you use that tree comes from Ifa. It's defined. The ocean, the trees, the salt, the honey, the birds, everything is defined. The identity and the properties of each identity are defined through Ifa. That's the purpose of the spiritual channel. It tells you the identity of things and thereby defining your relationship to those things. The second channel is economic. The economic channel is expressed through inheritance. Okay, it's expressed through intergenerational wealth. Okay, things are passed down. Property is passed down. Institutional knowledge is passed down. Tools and resources are passed down. Even relationships are passed down. It's an inheritance. That is really why you can see a huge overlap between ancestor veneration and Ifa. Okay, they're not the same. Egungun and Ifa are not the same thing. Okay, the ancestral society explains to you what the laws of intergenerational wealth are. That's Egungun. Okay, then the third channel is political power, the political channel. The political channel is about hierarchy. It's about structure. It's about how things have to be determined, how they have to be arbitrated, right? And that is in the hands of the elders. Okay, the elders are the ones who are the closest to the ancestors. They've been around the longest. They probably are the landowners and the property owners and the ones who have the most institutional wisdom, and they are thereby qualified to decide how to do things or not do things. They know the rules and how to enforce those rules. So implicit in the political power is a sort of a police or a military process. But that's the nature of what we call the Ogboni society, right? The Ogboni. Ogboni is literally elders. Okay, so you got people who are like 20, 30 years old, 40 years old, and they're Ogboni. You know, Ogboni are elders. They're old, 75, 85-year-old people. Those are the elders. All right, and there are a certain category, a certain group of people who have done certain things and positioned themselves in the society in a certain way to be at the top of the hierarchy. Okay, without those three channels, you don't have a community. It's that simple. All right. Now, people don't like that because we have an affinity for a community. We have a need for a community. It's a part of the human experience. Okay. But, and this is particularly true for African Americans, other groups, it's probably going to be slightly different. So I'm going to speak specifically to African Americans' idea of the Orisha community. If you're under 50, you don't even know what the community is. You probably never lived in the African American community if you're under 50. All right. And let me explain to you how I can make such a statement and why it matters. When I was about 9, 8, once I came home, there was no food. I was hungry. I just went next door and I knocked on the door, and Margaret was our neighbor. I said, Margaret, I'm hungry. Margaret laughed. She brought me in. She said, sit down. And she made me a big old plate of food. And that's when Margaret basically kind of adopted me. I became her baby at that point. And anytime we were together and, a group of people, that would be the way she would reinforce our bond. She'd tell this story and laugh. Oh, this boy came to my house and just knocked on the door as bold as day and said, Margaret, I'm hungry. And so she was letting me know that anytime I was hungry, I could always go to Margaret's house, right? It was no problem. She was going to take care of me. Okay. On the other side of the equation, once I remember going over to a neighbor's house, he had a basketball hoop in his driveway, right? And we would go there and shoot basketball. And there was a boy named Reggie. And on this day, Reggie was swearing. He was cussing. And Mr. Wilson said, hey, you guys better stop cussing. And Reggie, cussed again. And Mr. Wilson was in the house looking out the window, mind you. So then he looked directly at me and he says, didn't I tell you to stop cussing? And he said, if I hear you cuss again, I'm going to come out there and it's going to be me and you, mostly me. You know what I mean? I'm going to play the music and you're going to do the dancing, right? So why did I have to say something back? I told Mr. Wilson I wasn't cussing and wasn't nobody going to whoop me except for my mother. And I went to go do a 180-degree turn my back on Mr. Wilson. Somehow, by the time I got to be at about 170 degrees before Mr. Wilson was out the house, had me up by the arm and had me on the curb and was playing the music. Beep, beep, pop, beep, 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 boom, 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 boom. Yes, he wore me out, sent me home. I couldn't wait for my mother to get home. And I'm thinking, oh, yeah, me and my sister, we're going to tell her on Mr. Wilson. No, it was a continuation, the remix. Giddy, 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 giddy. I'm joking. My mother didn't spank, but it was worse. She just looked and she was like, you did what? You said what? To who? I'm so disappointed. That was worse. You know what I mean? And she turned me right back around, marched me back to Mr. Wilson's house with my pride in my hand and, made me apologize. I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson. It'll never happen again. And so that was like, those are two sort of extremes. Right. But I didn't live in the community, you guys. It was all black neighborhood, with like 35, 40 children, 28, 30 families. You know what I mean? All of us just out playing and doing everything together all day, every day, year in, year out. But it was not the community. Now, all of those parents, Margaret was from the community. My mother was from the community. Mr. Wilson was from the community. All the parents, they were from the community. They were from East St. Louis and Louisiana and Kentucky and Texas and all. They had grown up in the community, but we grew up in a neighborhood. It's different. Where they came from, there was an identity that was reinforced in their spiritual tradition, right? These are the Old Testament black folks. Their identity, whether you agree with it or not, was rooted in their spirituality. They had the economic and the political structures in place to channel their power. The community was a power base. Okay. Their community was a power base. We lived in a neighborhood where the power was diffused and was given over to, the state or whoever. Now, this is so important for you as the beginner because there's going to come a time in your experience, in your journey with Orisa lifestyle, where, people are going to constantly be telling you about the Orisa community, the Orisa community, the Orisa community. And it sets up these expectations. It creates these kinds of feelings. But the thing that you need to know is that the real elements that are necessary to make a community aren't there. The real social institutions and political institutions and economic institutions that make the community, they're not there for the Orisa community. Okay. So when you start to need certain things, when you need a school, you're not going to find it. When you need a temple, you're not going to find it. When you need a bank, you're not going to find it. When you need somebody to help make decisions and resolve conflicts and point out resources and create opportunities for you, you're not going to find it in the Orisa community. Right? So you're going to need to create that for yourself. And in order to create that, you're going to need to find actual people who really want to be a part of a community. Many people are fond of the idea and the feelings associated with a community, but they don't really want to be in a community. They don't really want the accountability and the checks and balances and the real behavioral modifications that are necessary to be in a community. You need to be able to discern all of these different things so that you can move forward with a healthy and realistic perspective on what it means to practice Orisa lifestyle in the United States of America. And this is, again, where the practice that we develop in the Orisa Lifestyle Academy is so integral to your ability to do that and create community, because you can't create community if you don't know who you are, right? If you don't know the difference between, your projected idea of yourself and who you really are and what you really come into the equation with, it's going to be really hard for you to be a part of a community, right? It's going to be hard for you to define your identity if you or to project your identity if you don't really know what it is. Secondly, you need a practice. You need a discipline. You need something that you can do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with precision and excellence. You know what it is. Other people know what it is. You're going to be able to stand and deliver, rain or shine, holidays and everything, because you have mastered the discipline. To show up in the community, you got to be able to do that. And then last but not least, you've got to know who you serve. You've got to be very, very, very clear about why you're giving what you have to this particular group of people, why they need it, and what you need for them to give to reciprocate your presence in their lives, and vice versa. So Orisa lifestyle does not enjoy a community today, but with your willingness to practice self-discovery, to develop a daily practice, and to perfect your service, we will in time be able to say there is such a thing as the Orisa community. Aboro aboye, aboshishe.